Hi everyone, Jerry the Poor Historian here. It has been way too long since I made a video, but I am here at home in my basement in my private fishing artifact collection to bring you a long overdue video. You guys might remember, well, before I get into it, I want to give a quick dedication of this video to Thierry the Sword Guy. If you have not already heard of him, definitely follow him on social media. He's very knowledgeable antique arms dealer and very helpful and very supportive even to my own collection years ago, and especially because he's kind of related to why I have these swords here. I've kind of done him dirty because we were doing a trade, some of his Indonesian kris in exchange for some of my, at the time, mysterious training cutlasses, which we now know what they are, and I just have not sent them to him because I wanted to make this video first. It had been probably over a year now, and I've received the kris, and I haven't sent him the sword. So I'm sorry. Hopefully, you'll get some more publicity. Even not that you need it, because he's very popular. So everyone watching here, go check out Thierry the Sword Guy, and check out his wares, and follow his social media. So, back to the story. You might have seen a few videos from my past on The Poor Historian about the mysterious training cutlass, and if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend going and checking it out. It is these guys that you see here on the wall behind me. They are all over the board in terms of identification and misidentification. I have seen these described as naval training swords from as far back as the Civil War. I've seen them Spanish-American War, I've seen them World War I, I've seen them World War II, I've seen these be called Japanese training swords. I've seen them all over the place, and it's always by auction houses, which, by the way, if you are a true follower of history, auction houses are your worst location in terms of proper historical research and identification. They are just atrocious. And yes, there's a few exceptions here and there, but in reality, they want to sell a product, and they will use keywords to sell that product, such as Civil War, or World War II, or Japanese. So these, the information on them online was nowhere, not counting the horribly counterproductive and contradictory auction house websites. So I took it upon myself to figure this out. Like, what are these? They're everywhere, and they're fairly cheap. You can find them in auction houses, you can find them in garage sales, and in fact, one of them I got at a thrift store. It was an online thrift store. This one here, which I find hilarious, it was listed as a pirate cosplay sword, and someone had apparently sanded and then refinished the wooden grip, and then painted this guard to be brass. So not very well kept piece of history. They also, I believe, a lot of these blades were blued, and it looks like they kind of cleaned off the bluing. Here's an unmodified original compared to this one. So fun stuff. I originally thought that these swords were from the Spanish-American War era. And in a sense I was right, but definitely was not right. My justification for it was very thin. It was not good. It was in part because of the Great White Fleet under Teddy Roosevelt. It was just kind of America kind of modernizing its navy, and Teddy Roosevelt was a proponent of hand-to-hand combat, so I just kind of put the pieces together. It's not scholarly history, it was more of a theory. I also had these. There's frequently, you'll find little white markings on these training swords, and I assumed Great White Fleet, right? They'd have white paint. It was bad theories. Now, we had some discussions online. This was also over a year ago, and for the life of me, I tried to find that original discussion and tried to find the individuals who were helping me out with that. They were incredibly knowledgeable and incredibly helpful, and I cannot find them, and I can't give you proper attribution. So, if you know who you are, who helped me with this, please shoot me a message, because it happened so long ago and I can't find it, and I'd like to give you credit maybe in some future video that I make. But what we did do is we found the truth. So, the truth, as far as we know, and bear with me, it'll get a little bit funky, just a little bit, but I think it's a fun story. In the late 1800s, and this is kind of where my like, oh yeah, Great White Fleet, Spanish-American War era was kind of right, but definitely wasn't, was in the late 1800s, the Dutch fought a colonial war against the native inhabitants of Aceh in Indonesia. The Aceh used a type of thick sword that they referred to as a Klewang. It looks nothing like this at all, but it was apparently pretty effective and the Dutch liked it, and so they adopted the title, the word Klewang, Klewang. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it. I'm very sorry about that for any Dutch or Indonesian viewers. Trying. I'm notorious for mispronouncing historical words. Just go look at my early Aztec Makwawit videos and you'll hear me go Makwaweedle and stuff like that. So I work as I go. Nonetheless, the Dutch adopted that title, Klewang, to their naval cutlasses, just for the hell of it, instead of calling it a naval cutlass. I mean, this is very much a naval cutlass. And what you get is what has been referred to as the Dutch Model 1898 Klewang, aka Naval Cutlass. And what I have here is the military version of that. Now, there's a couple things to point out, and this is very important. Just talking about this sword, just this one, the military, you can see it's definitely not for training. A little bit of a false edge here, definite true edge along the length. And as I mentioned earlier, sort of, this blade is blackened or blued, not raw reflective steel. Also has a couple neat things. This is kind of like a plastic coating, which is nice for Navy, I suppose. Not going to get rusty with some brass rivets. So, story with this, Model 1898 Dutch Klewang. Then the design of this, and apparently some stock, when I can't confirm it, was sold to the U.S. during World War I in 1917, leading to the U.S. Model 1917 Naval Cutlass, which looked similar to the Dutch Klewang, but the guard was uncut out and a little bit wider. It had more of a bowl guard than this kind of half shell guard, half cup guard. So then, that was World War I era, kept going. And then in World War II, they upgraded it sort of, again, to what is unscholastically, casually referred to as the U.S. Model 1941 Naval Cutlass, which looks just like the Model 1898 Dutch Klewang. So the Model 1898 Dutch Klewang looked like this. Then the U.S. Model 1917 came out, which was like this, but with a larger bell guard, or larger cup guard. And then the U.S. Model 1941 came out, and it looked just like this. So this item right here in my hand is not a replica. They do have replicas of these. They're not perfect. But this one is either a Dutch Model 1898 or a U.S. Model 1941. This came to me, this piece came to me as a pirate costume sword with this nasty, like, pseudo-leather, kind of cardboardy baldric, which happens all the time. Yay, Renaissance fair cultures. Dig into your granddad's storage closet and find a costume piece so you can have an accent. So, that's the story. Hi, cat. This is the story of the 1898, 1917, 1941 Cutlass. Hi, stop. I'm doing a video. Where does this lead to this? Well, there's a few sort of obvious visual similarities. This one's obviously kind of cheaply made, if you will. You'll see the hilt here, the half basket. It's just made out of like steel stock and just bent into place and welded together or riveted together. And that's really, it's not high quality. The handles are wood turned, and this one is kind of a flat grip, so it's not a perfect comparison, because this one seems to have even a more ergonomic grip than this one. But you can see that the length of it, if I can try to get it all in the video here, the length of it is just similar. The weight and balance of it is similar, but not perfect. And it just, the look of it. Sorry, back to it. My phone had apparently run out of storage space. I had to delete a few hundred photos in order to get the video recording again. But back to it. The neat thing is, we did find proof. We found proof of what this is, kinda. The book is called Klewang, Collection of the Dutch Military Museum, or something along those lines. I'll put a link to it in the comments. But the thing is, they have the blueprints of this, sort of, calling it a Training Cutlass from the late 1800s or early 1900s. The reason I keep saying kind of is because it is exclusively everything you see here except this half basket. It just doesn't have that on there. But everything else, including this front shell piece, is there. So what we can possibly assume is that that was just kind of like the proposed look, and they added this later. It could be possibly that the Americans got all of these, as is shown in that blueprint, and then added this later, or it is an entirely American creation after they took the design of the Dutch Klewang and subsequently the training version of it, and this is just the US version. The problem is, there is nothing written on these. There's no US markings, there's no creator markings, there's nothing. The only thing, I've once saw a very questionable US stamp on the wooden handle, which I thought it was questionable. I think it was a US Navy or US Marines or some stamp like that. The reason I find it questionable is because it's very easy to up the financial value of these items by putting a US mark on a malleable piece like this would, which was also not really commonly done in World War II era or this whole 20th century era. They would often just do what they always did and put it right here on the ricasso. Who knows? Who knows? But what we have done is we have found enough evidence, both scholarly and just comparison, I suppose. This is not a scholarly, this is not a history article, I'm just a YouTube video or sharing information, to at least justify that this mysterious training cutlass, often misquoted or mistitled by auction houses, etc., and very rarely actually seen in museums or any scholarly work, this piece is a Training Cutlass, or a 20th century training cutlass, version of the cutlass. So hooray! It's obviously the proportions are not perfect. The basket is a little bigger here. It's ever so slightly longer, but we've done it. We've found the answer. This is no longer a mysterious training cutlass. It is a Training Cutlass, or training naval sword from no earlier than 1898, likely much later during the World Wars. And probably, if you were to ask me, probably World War II, US. And just to confirm that, my reasoning for that is because these are incredibly common in the US. I follow all sorts of sword sale sites or sword collection sites, and just for whatever reason, these are just crazy popular in the US. And they're not very popular elsewhere, even in Europe. So my assumption is these are US made, or at least US purchased from the Netherlands after that transition happened to a US style rather than a Dutch style weapon. I hope this helps. Definitely check out Thierry the Sword Guy. Thierry, I will be sending these and all the other stuff that I said I'd send to you shortly. Now that I finally got this video, I just got to edit it, got to put it online. I've got your address and everything. I'll send it out to you soon. And everyone else, sorry these videos are taking so long. It's because we're working so hard on the Swordsmanship Museum and Academy. Go and like that on social media if you haven't yet. And awesome. Catch you guys next time.